Solitude is the stage where your true self takes center spotlight. It's in those quiet moments when the world isn't demanding your attention that you can finally hear the sound of your own voice. Without distractions, without expectations, and without anyone else's influence, you meet the person you really are, not the version shaped by others, but the unfiltered, unpolished you. And let me tell you, that meeting can change your life. You see, when you're constantly surrounded by people, their opinions can act like a mirror, reflecting back a version of you that fits their narrative. They say, you should do this, or you need to be like that. But in solitude, that mirror shatters. You're left with nothing but your own reflection, raw and honest. And while that might feel uncomfortable at first, it's exactly what you need to truly understand yourself. Think about it. When you strip away the noise of relationships, friendships, and society's expectations, you start asking the questions that matter. Who am I when no one's looking? What do I want? Not because someone told me to, but because it sets my soul on fire. Solitude doesn't give you the answers, it gives you the space to find them. And let's be clear, solitude isn't loneliness. Loneliness comes from feeling disconnected from others. Solitude, on the other hand, is about reconnecting with yourself. It's about sitting in the silence and realizing that you're not missing anything. You're discovering everything. That's where the power lies. In solitude, you gain clarity. You start to see your strengths for what they are, not as tools to please others, but as gifts to shape your own life. You recognize your weaknesses, not as something to hide, but as opportunities to grow. It's in those moments alone that you begin to own your story, to reclaim your narrative. Some people avoid being alone because they're afraid of what they'll find. But here's the truth. The only thing you'll find in solitude is you. And that's not something to fear, that's something to embrace. Because until you know yourself, how can you expect to truly connect with others? How can you build a life that's authentic to you if you don't even know what you stand for? Solitude isn't about shutting the world out, it's about letting yourself in. It's about realizing that you don't need constant validation or approval. You are enough, just as you are, flaws and all. And when you understand that, you become unstoppable. You stop bending to fit into molds that were never meant for you. You start living for you, not for anyone else. So take a moment, step away from the noise. Spend time with yourself. Because in solitude, you don't just discover who you are, you discover who you're meant to be. And that, my friend, is the foundation of everything. Relationships don't define you. They might add to your story, but they're not the author of it. Your growth and purpose, that's where your true identity lies. Too often, we hand over the pen to someone else thinking their presence in our life completes us, validates us, gives us meaning. But here's the truth, no relationship, no matter how beautiful, can replace the work you have to do on yourself. You see, we've been conditioned to think that our worth is tied to who we're connected to, a partner, a friend, a family member. We put so much weight on being chosen by someone else that we forget to choose ourselves. But the danger in that is clear when you let relationships define you, you're giving away control. You're saying, who I am depends on someone else's presence or approval, and that's not living, that's existing. Growth is where the real definition of self begins. It's in the moments you stretch beyond your comfort zone, push past your fears, and rise above your failures that you become who you're meant to be. Relationships might walk with you on that journey, but they can't take the steps for you. That's your job. You have to do the heavy lifting of becoming your best self, even if that means walking alone for a while. And let's talk about purpose. Purpose is what gets you out of bed in the morning, what keeps you going when everything around you seems to fall apart. It's the reason you were put on this earth. If you tie that purpose to a relationship, you're building your life on shaky ground. Because relationships, no matter how strong, can shift. People change, situations change, and when they do, where does that leave you? But when your purpose is rooted in something deeper, in your calling, in your vision, in your growth, nothing and no one can take that from you. Now, don't get me wrong. Relationships are important. They can enrich your life, challenge you, and bring joy. But they should be an extension of who you are, not the definition. The healthiest relationships are the ones where two whole, purpose-driven people come together not to complete each other, but to complement each other. They don't fill a void, they share an abundance. When you focus on your growth and purpose, you stop looking to relationships to save you or validate you. You start showing up as your best self, and in turn, you attract people who respect and honor that. You create connections that are built on mutual strength, not desperation. So don't let anyone tell you that your worth is tied to who's standing beside you. Your growth, your purpose, that's your foundation. Build on that, and you'll find that you don't need a relationship to feel whole. You're already complete. And when the right people come along, they'll see it too. Being alone gives you something most people don't value enough: control. Not over others, but over yourself, your goals, your dreams, your identity. In solitude, you call the shots. No one else gets to weigh in, distract you, or steer you off course. It's just you and the path you're carving for yourself. And that kind of power is priceless. When you're alone, there's no negotiation. You don't have to compromise your vision to fit someone else's plan. Your dreams don't have to shrink to make room for someone else's doubts. Solitude, you get to dream as big as you want, as boldly as you can. You set the pace, the direction, and the destination. The only limit is how far you're willing to push yourself. Too often, we let relationships or society dictate what our lives should look like. We start chasing goals that aren't even ours, trying to live up to expectations that don't align with who we are. But when you're alone, that noise fades away. You're left with clarity, a clear view of what you truly want, and the freedom to pursue it without distractions. And let's not forget identity. Being alone forces you to face yourself, to figure out who you are at your core. It's not about the labels others have placed on you or the roles you've played for their benefit. It's about stripping all that away and discovering what makes you you. Who are you when no one's watching? What values guide you? What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? Solitude is where you answer those questions. It's where you find the courage to own your identity, even if it doesn't fit into anyone else's expectations. And that's crucial because when you know who you are, you stop letting other people define you. You stop living for approval and start living for purpose. Now, don't confuse solitude with isolation. Isolation is about cutting yourself off from the world. Solitude is about reconnecting with yourself. It's about creating space to grow into the person you were meant to be. It's not a punishment, it's a privilege. It's where you gain the strength to say, this is my life and I'm going to live it on my terms. Being alone isn't always easy, but it's worth it. It's in those quiet moments when it's just you and your thoughts that you start to see the possibilities. You start to believe in your own power. And once you do, nothing can stop you. So embrace the solitude. Take control. Set your goals, chase your dreams, and define your identity. Because when you're alone, the only voice that matters is your own. And that's the voice that will lead you to greatness. Solitude isn't loneliness. Let's make that clear right now. Loneliness is a sense of emptiness, a craving for connection that hasn't been filled. But solitude, that's different. Solitude is a choice. It's a privilege. It's the time you give yourself to heal, grow, and thrive without anyone else's voice interrupting the process. When you're alone, you're not running away from the world, you're running toward yourself. It's in those quiet moments that you can finally hear what your soul has been trying to say. Healing starts there. Maybe life has thrown some heavy punches your way: loss, betrayal, disappointment. And while people mean well, their advice and opinions can sometimes cloud the very clarity you need to find peace. Solitude gives you the space to sit with your pain, to understand it, to process it without judgment. Healing doesn't happen in a crowd, it happens in the stillness. But solitude doesn't stop at healing, it's also where you grow. You see, when you're surrounded by people, you tend to adapt to their rhythms, their expectations, their energy. That's not necessarily bad, but it can keep you from figuring out your own rhythm. Solitude is where you recalibrate, where you ask yourself, what do I want? What do I need to change? Who do I want to become? Growth isn't just about achieving more, it's about becoming more. And that kind of transformation requires space to reflect, to challenge yourself, and to envision what's next. And then comes the thriving. Once you've healed, once you've grown, solitude becomes the fertile ground where your dreams start to bloom. In the stillness, you find focus. You find energy. You find the courage to chase after the life you've always wanted. Solitude doesn't hold you back, it sets you free. It strips away the distractions and gives you the time and clarity to build something extraordinary. People often fear solitude because they think it means they're alone in the world. But solitude isn't about isolation, it's about connection to yourself, to your purpose, and to what truly matters. It's about learning that you don't need a crowd to feel whole. Everything you need, you already have within you. So don't run from solitude, embrace it, use it. Let it heal your wounds, fuel your growth, and propel you toward greatness. Because the truth is, solitude isn't empty, it's full of possibilities. It's where you find your strength, your peace, and your direction. And when you step out of it, you step out stronger, wiser, and ready to thrive like never before. Solitude isn't loneliness, it's the privilege to become who you were always meant to be. Walking alone isn't about giving up on love. It's about choosing yourself, choosing your peace, your self-respect, and your well-being over anything that doesn't align with the life you deserve. Too often, people stay in situations that don't serve them because they're afraid of what it means to walk alone. But let me tell you, walking alone isn't a failure, it's a triumph. It's an act of courage, of strength, and of self-worth. Love, at its core, should never cost you your peace. It should never ask you to sacrifice your self-respect. Real love doesn't break you down, it builds you up. It doesn't silence your voice, it amplifies it. But when love becomes a battlefield, when it starts to drain you instead of fulfill you, that's when you have to make a choice. Do you stay in the chaos hoping it will change? Or do you take a step back and reclaim your life? Walking alone is that step. It's not about turning your back on love, it's about turning toward yourself. It's about recognizing that your peace is priceless, that your self-respect is non-negotiable. You deserve relationships that honor who you are, not ones that force you to compromise your values or your sanity. When you walk alone, you're not running from love, you're making room for the right kind of love, the kind that doesn't demand you to shrink or settle. You're saying, I'd rather be at peace with myself than in turmoil with someone else. And that's a powerful statement. Self-respect is the foundation of everything. If you don't respect yourself, how can you expect others to? Walking alone is an act of self-respect. It's saying, I know my worth and I won't accept anything less than I deserve. It's choosing to protect your energy, to honor your boundaries, and to prioritize your happiness, even if it means being by yourself for a while. Now, walking alone isn't always easy. There will be moments of doubt, moments when you wonder if you made the right decision. But those moments are part of the journey. They're the moments where you learn to trust yourself, to rely on your own strength. And as you keep walking, you'll find that the peace you gain far outweighs the fear of being alone. Walking alone is a declaration: I will not settle. I will not compromise my peace for temporary comfort. I will not trade my self-respect for approval or validation. It's about standing firm in your truth and knowing that the love meant for you will never ask you to abandon yourself. So don't be afraid to walk alone. It's not the end of love, it's the beginning of a deeper love for yourself. And when you honor that, you open the door to the kind of relationships that truly deserve a place in your life. The right relationship will never ask you to abandon who you are. It won't demand that you dim your light to make someone else shine. It won't require you to change the essence of your being just to fit into someone else's world. The right relationship doesn't strip you of your identity, it celebrates it. You see, when a relationship is built on mutual respect and understanding, it creates a space where you can both grow and thrive. It's not about losing yourself, it's about finding more of yourself in the company of someone who truly sees you. The right relationship doesn't feel like a burden or a compromise of your values, it feels like freedom. Too often, people fall into relationships where they feel like they have to become someone they're not just to keep the peace or gain approval. They start letting go of their dreams, their passions, and even their boundaries, all in the name of love. But love, real love, will never ask you to sacrifice the core of who you are. Because if you have to give up your identity to make a relationship work, it's not a relationship, it's a prison. The right relationship lifts you higher. It encourages your growth and supports your journey. It doesn't try to control or change you, it accepts you as you are while inspiring you to be your best self. That kind of connection doesn't come from manipulation or compromise, it comes from alignment. It's two people walking their paths side by side, not one trying to drag the other down a road they don't want to take. And here's the thing, when you abandon who you are for a relationship, you don't just lose yourself, you lose the very thing that made you special in the first place. You lose the spark that drew that person to you. So what's the point? If someone can't love you for who you are, then they don't deserve a front row seat in your life. The right relationship honors your individuality. It doesn't try to mold you into someone else's image. It's a partnership where your voice matters, your dreams are valued, and your boundaries are respected. It's not about completing each other, it's about complementing each other. Two whole people coming together not to fill a void, but to share an overflow of love and respect. So stand firm in who you are. Don't shrink yourself to fit into a relationship. Don't quiet your voice to make someone else feel comfortable. The right relationship won't require you to choose between love and self-respect, it will give you both. When you find that kind of love, you'll know it. It'll feel like home. Not a home you move into, but a home that's built around you brick by brick, with every piece of your true self intact. And that, my friend, is a relationship worth holding on to. Ladies and gentlemen, remember this, the right relationship will never ask you to betray the most important relationship you'll ever have, the one with yourself. It will honor your dreams, respect your values, and celebrate the person you are. Stand firm in your identity, and don't settle for anything that demands you compromise your truth. The love meant for you will never diminish you, it will elevate you. So hold on to your self-worth and trust that the right connection will find you when you refuse to abandon yourself. Stay true, stay strong, and let real love meet you where you are.